How long has it been since you got lost or used a paper map? In today's world of Google Maps and GPS, we always know exactly where we are, and it's pretty much impossible to hide. The journey to this point in time is chronicled in the new book, You Are Here, by Boston Globe technology writer Hiawatha Bray. And Hiawatha Bray is here. Welcome back to Greater Boston.
Glad to be here.
So I get a kick out of you doing this book because of all the techno stuff that you're into, this is one of the most basic. And
yes.
we say, how many times a week do you say to somebody, what did we do before we had, and it always has to do with directions or GPS.
Absolutely. And that's really what has happened, and that's what inspired me to want to write this book. The first time I picked up a phone that said, I turned on the phone and it said GPS on it, and I said, wait a minute, they put this in phones now? And I started to realize that we were about to enter a world in which being lost and being out of touch was on the verge of becoming virtually non-existent. And I suddenly said to myself, how the heck did that happen? Because if you really look at the history of human science and technology, there's never been a more persistent, desperate problem than simply finding out where am I, where's this other place, and how do I get from there to there. It has turned out to be one of the toughest challenges humans have ever faced, and it's taken us millennia to figure out consistent, reliable ways of doing it, and the last big chunk of it happened over about the last 100 years, and I wanted to write about that.
I mean, when you think about it, and you touched on it in the book, I mean, the explorers, the founders of this country, they went by wind directions, and can you imagine doing that now?
Absolutely.
And then, as you point out, I mean, actually, this technology has been around for a long time, since World War II at least.
Oh,
right?
well, it all starts really at the turn of the century, or the turn of the previous century, where a whole bunch of stuff happens at once. By the way, people don't realize, people think we're living in an advanced technological age. Imagine being born in 1850 and dying in 1920. You'd have been 70 years old. You would have lived through like the invention of 3 or 4 internets at once. You'd have seen the invention of electric power, the inventions
of the car.
Exactly, the automobile, the airplane, the radio. And the airplane and radio are particularly important to this story. First, radio. The minute radio came along, they realized, hey, we could use that to find our way, because radio beams travel in a straight line. So if you could figure out which way the radio is coming from, that'll tell us what direction we're going in. And that came along around the same time as the airplane. And the airplane changes everything, because suddenly people realize they have no idea how to navigate when they're in the air. And so a lot of these subsequent inventions came up because they had to figure out not only how to navigate in the air, but how to do it while people were shooting at them. Because, of course, the airplane comes into its own in World War I. And so you get this whole slew of innovations around warfare that start to really change the way we navigate around the world. And, well, that's basically a lot of the stuff that I write about.
You know, you think about today, because of the horrible tragedy with the Malaysian Airways.
Absolutely.
But there are limitations to everything. I mean, we're on the verge of never being able to say, hey, I got lost. But yet, something like that, and I mean, I realize the globe is big and all that, but you'd think that there would be some technology that would be able to pinpoint that.
There are technologies that could have, but they aren't yet reliably, consistently used. I mean, for example, as you've heard, there are satellite radios that are always available to these airplanes. One of the things we have to remember is planes flying over oceans are often not in range of radar. I mean, people think they're always on the radar all the time. No, they're not. But you're pretty much always in the range of a satellite if you're communicating with that satellite. But if something went wrong, if, for example, there were people on board that plane that sabotaged it, or, and this is another possibility, say there was a fire on board the plane. There's a great article today in Wired talking about if this was a fire on the plane that burned out the electrical systems, that might explain what happened. There are no foolproof systems. But nowadays, because of the technology, if you're using this technology properly, it's pretty near impossible to get lost. And that's a good thing, and in some cases, it's a bad thing.
However, I contend that some of those, the voices, the Siri voices coming at you, they're telling you to turn left and right, or they're giving you the worst way possible to get to someplace. I mean, there's got to, I mean, it's sort of off the subject, but it's making us dumber, in a sense. Do you agree with that?
Well, in a sense, I understand that. I sympathize with that. The idea that we don't necessarily ourselves navigate. We rely on others to do our navigation for us. But I don't want to carry that too far. First of all, I don't slavishly follow these. There have certainly been times when I'm driving someplace and it tells me go someplace, and I know that's wrong. That's just completely wrong. Secondly, they get better and better and better. When I first tried the Google navigation, it gave me entirely the wrong way. Now, it wasn't wrong, but it gave me an inefficient way to get from where I was going to where I was going next. A year later, it had the better route. It automatically upgrades and improves constantly. And that's, again, a good thing and a bad thing, because one of the reasons these things are improving constantly is because when you carry them in your pocket, they are constantly tracking tracking where you're going. Whether it's Google, Apple, Microsoft, they know where you are all the time. And that's not necessarily bad, but it can also raise some serious concerns about privacy.
Lots of privacy issues. All right, Hiawatha Bray, as always, pleasure to have you here.
Oh, it's a pleasure having you, too.